All right, so once you open up Visual Studio, you're going to see this screen here, and it's tempting to open up a new project. Don't do it.
Okay.
Choose the continue without code.
Okay.
Once you do that, eventually it's going to bring up this window here. So what we want to do is we want to start a new project. So that's really easy to do. Is I'm going to click on File, and I'm going to click on New, and I'm going to check to see where it's going first. So you might want to change it on your computer. So first thing is you're always going to be opening up an empty project.
Mm-hmm.
And click on Next. Then you name the project whatever you want to call it. That's as much as I will get without having to look it up. If you want to put it in a specific directory, I'll address that another night in here. This is where I keep it in here. Otherwise, it tries to put it in a repository, which don't worry about what it means. Is I just recommend that you have a specific folder on your computer and store it there. And then I may have actually changed the name of this, so it's going to probably give me a hard time. So let me think I made it VCC. That's why it's not finding it. I changed the name of the directory. So it's looking for the directory and it's not going to find it.
Okay.
I changed it to this. So that's why when I did it, I said, I know something's wrong with it. Okay. Always make sure you have place a check box in the place solution project in the same directory. Otherwise, you're going to have a extra directory to go through to get to where your project is. So just leave it there. And that's good to go. So once you do that, just click on Create. And I will show you how to change the location, because the next time I try to open up a project, it's going to go back to where it says in the options itself. Okay, so now we have a project that does absolutely nothing. Can't get any more exciting than that. So what we have to do is we have to add a source file. So give me something that you would want to do. I think we did it a couple weeks ago. How about if we add 3 numbers together and get the sum of it and the average of them?
Okay, three numbers.
We're going to get 3 numbers, and then we're going to get the sum of them and the average. So we just right click on source files and choose add, and then a new item. Now you get another screen. We want a C++ file, and we'll just call this numbers. Your source files always should say something that is descriptive of it. Okay, so eventually we have that. Now there's certain things that you're going to want to have in every project. The first thing you're going to do, and these are comments, it's the 2 slashes, is you're going to put your name. And then you're going to put in the assignment. So like it's page 52, number 4, that in there. Then just a, 1 or 2 sentences, this program, in this particular, will get 3 integers and calculate the total and average. Okay, so now we have a program that still does absolutely nothing, but at least we started it. So we have to tell the computer what we're allowed to use in there. Think of maybe you're going to a restaurant and they give you a menu, and those are the things that you're allowed to order. So we're going to start off with the word include, followed by, with a number sign. I'm just selecting it and hitting the tab key. And then I'm typing, I always type ST, and because that's the old version of C++. So it's IO stream. And that means I want to be able to use the library of input-output functions. For us right now is cout and cin. Then I want to put in, even though we don't need it right now, a library called string. And then we want to put in another one called iomanip. Now I have a template in Canvas that has all this stuff in there. Okay, string we're not going to need right now because what it allows us to do things with strings that IO stream does not allow us to do, such as like get the length of the string, insert characters in the middle of the string, and a bunch of things in there, but we're not going to be able to do that right now, not to worry about it. So then we have a statement called using namespace Std. That means I want to be able to use all of the standard functions without having to type in std. So if I were to want to type in cin and I didn't have using namespace std, I would have to type std : and cin. I'll show you that in a bit. So every C++ program must, unless you rewrite the code, begin with an integer function. So we're going to learn about functions, I believe, tomorrow, I believe. So, and we don't put anything in the parentheses. And then we have an opening and closing bracket. And I always put an identifier, because when you start putting in brackets and you get nested brackets, it's very easy to get lost of which one belongs to one, and you delete one and all of a sudden nothing lines up. So I always have gotten into the habit of doing that. So now we have a program that at least starts and does nothing. So if I wanted to put cout, and I'm just going to put welcome to C++, and the last two lines always should be system and pause, and then return 0. What the system pause does, it's just one of those press any key to continue. If you're using Visual C++, it's going to put it in for you. But if you're using a different compiler like Eclipse or something like that, it may not. So that's why I always say just put it in. So now we have a program that's going to print out welcome to C++. So I'm going to compile it first just to see if there's any errors. So I'm clicking on the build and I'm clicking on the compile. And everything will go down. I'll succeed. That's good. So now I want to run it. The actual shortcut is Control F5, but I'm clicking on this and then I'm hitting run without debug. Do not start with debugging. So now we have a program that's going to do nothing, says welcome to C++, and press any key to continue. So we have it all on the same line. So what we need to do is do a little cosmetic thing and go to the next line. A shortcut to go to the next line is a \n, and notice that it's purple. Or I could have done and L. That's just a way of going to the next line. So now you're going to see we're actually going to have two blank lines when we do this. So if you're in the middle of a string, it makes sense to just put it there so you don't have to put in these brackets. Otherwise, but again, there's no right way or wrong way to do it. You do it the way you feel the most comfortable. So I'm going to hit Control F5 and see what happens. So now we have welcome to C++, and 2 blank lines. So that was pretty easy. So now I'm going to show you what will happen is if we don't have this using namespace. Okay, this now is no longer a thing because it doesn't know where it comes from. So what you have to do is type in std and the 2 dots and std and the 2 dots. Well, that's kind of a pain in the butt to do that. If that makes you happy, then I don't know what to tell you. But I don't choose to do that. So we'll get rid of them. So now we have something here, and we'll change the prompt, and we'll get a number. So in order to get a number, we have to have a variable, and we're going to be doing integers. So you have to declare variables the very beginning. So we have integer. Now there are all kinds of rules that I make you guys do, such as declaring all your variables in the beginning, that C++ could care less about, but it's not good programming and it makes it very challenging to find a mistake. So you're going to declare everything. So we're saying, okay, we want something of type integer and we want it to hold a number. And we'll just do number 1 and we're going to initialize it to 0. So we're just going to, right now, I always tell people, do one thing at a time and test it. So let's do this, and we'll put in, please enter a number. And I'm going to get rid of this, because I want the prompt to be on the same line. So it's going to say, welcome to C++, please enter a number. Now we want to get a number. So at cin, and then the variable that we're using for a number. Then we're going to go cout. We're going to print the number. Your number is number. And I spelled it wrong. Anything you do wrong, you get these annoying red lines. And it's, you know, just get used to it. But see, what's good is, as you make a mistake, you see that it's there. And it'll tell you what's wrong. So let's look at this. So we declared a variable and we initialized it to 0. We said, welcome to C++, please enter a number. Okay, fine. Cout stands for console out, means display this to the console. Cin means get something from the console, which is your keyboard in there. And then we're going to cout your number is, and then it's going to substitute number for whatever you typed in for here. So we'll test that and see what happens. All right, so please enter a number. And this is why I got rid of the endl here. So you would see that please enter a number and it would be down here. So it gets confusing. So let's do my lucky number, 17. Okay, your number is 17. Boom. So now let's do something. Just do one step at a time. Let's declare another integer. And we'll call it double, of course I don't spell very good, double number. All right, now this is a special way that I'm declaring it. In the last class, I mentioned that I don't like people to declare more than one variable on a line. So you can break them up in here. The only thing is you're separating the first one and every one with a comma, but the last one must have a semicolon. Every statement has to end with a semicolon for the most part. There are a few exceptions to that. So the reason we could have put double number here, but by doing it this way, it lines up nicely. So that just makes it look nicer. So let's do this in here. And we do, your number is there. So let's go double number. I'm going to do it the way that works, but not the preferred way. Is number 1 times 2. Now notice I'm putting every calculation inside a parentheses. So that is one thing that I require you guys to do. Why? Because it cuts down on errors. Does C++ care? No. But when you get errors, that's a lot worse than losing a few points or a little bit of inconvenience. So we got double the number. So now we'll just do, I'm going to copy this because I'm too lazy. And we'll put double your number is. Now here we don't want to do number. We want to change it to double number. So now that should work. So let's try this and let's compile it and see what happens. Enter number 17. Your number is 17. Double your number is 34. Press any key to continue. So that works. So I'm keeping this one simple for right now. So what I want to do now is add 3 numbers together. And I have to change that to 2 and 3. So let's say I copied and pasted it. And we have number, we're trying to do this in here, and we're declaring the same number once. So let me compile it and see if we get an error. It should say we have duplicate things in here. So boom, 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 multiple in here. So they kind of get you in there. So that's what's good about C++. When you compile it, it's going to tell you what's wrong. Or it should. So now we'll do this. Let's just compile it and make sure that there's no errors. We're not running it. We're compiling it, just checking for errors. Okay, I guess we're running it, whether we like it or not. I must have hit Control key without realizing it. All right, so this takes care of this. So now we're going to add a new variable, and we're going to call it total. Now, notice we're not having to put in integer every time. That's the advantage of doing it this way. If we did it with the semicolon, we'd have to put integer double number equals 0. Integer number 1 equals 0. Integer number 2 equals 0. Blah, 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 blah. And now we need another one. We'll call it double. It doesn't matter whether you use double or float. Just when you start using double, use double. If you start using float, use float. And we'll initialize it to 0.2. The difference between a double and a float and an integer can have no decimal points, where a float and a double can. The float is huge, and a double is even huger. So now what we need to do is, and I'm going to change this to sum. Sum is probably a little better description. So what we need to do is change this. Please enter number 1. And then I'm going to show you an easier way to do it using a for loop. But that would be a lot to digest in one night. So, but once you start using them, it's not that big a deal. All right. So right here we have a prompt. Welcome to C++. Please enter a number 1. Please enter number 2. Please enter number 3, and it's getting the numbers. So now we're just going to do we'll skip this because we don't need it anymore. We don't need double. We're going to get rid of all this. So I'm going to put right here sum, and that's nothing more. Now, when you're doing a formula, do it in English. So let me throw you under the bus right now. If I were to give you, say, how would you get the sum of the 3 numbers? What would you do? In English. Don't, no coding, just in English. What will you do?
Just in English?
Yeah.
Put the sum?
Well, but in English, just tell, yeah. What would you do in English? If,
We'll have to spell it out?
no, just tell me.
I'm adding, right?
Yeah, you're adding the 3 numbers. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. I know you didn't didn't realize that the answer was so simple, was it?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So what you want to do is before you put it in a code, okay, well, I need to get the sum of 3 numbers. How do I get it? Oh, I know. Add the 3 numbers together.
Yes.
So it's nothing more than number 1. Oops. I'm not doing good.
Oh my God, Professor Foster, you are so good. You're breaking it down, you know?
Yeah. It's, well, after a while, it'll be very easy for you too.
You've been doing this a long time?
Longer than I want to admit.
Yeah, I just followed the link that you put in, and I followed it because you're making me really understand it now.
Well, good.
Because I was lost.
Well, that's what I'm here for. All right. So now we have the sum. Now I'm going to do it wrong. Okay. So how many numbers do we have? Is 3. So how do you get the average? So tell me in English, how would we get the average of the 3 numbers?
Calculate it?
Yeah, but don't calculate. Just how would you get it in English? Just tell me the simple words in English. I'll give you a hint. It does include the word divide. So you don't think high level tech. Just simple English. All right. I'll tell you what. You have any kids?
No.
No. All right. Well, okay. Well, this is your lucky day. You opened the door and you found out you have 3 kids you did not know about. Okay? And the person gave you $9 and said you need to give this to each one in equal amount. How would you know how much to give to each kid?
Well, we multiply.
Well, they gave you $9. So how would you know how much to give to each kid?
Okay, each kid is going to get 3 apiece.
And how did you get that? Don't think hard. But you did 9, but how would you know it was 3? What would you do?
Because I added them up.
But you started with 9.
Okay, I divided.
Divided. There you go. That was the word that was coming out. See, don't you guys? My wife is the same way. She tries to analyze stuff. It's just simple. Oh, I have a total. I'm going to divide it by thing, or or if you have a dinner menu, you go out there and you went to Flanagan's and you just spent $172.10, and there's 8 of you. How would you know how much to pay? Now, the answer is not, I'd have the waitress divide the bills in there, because they can do that. You would just stand there and take the total bill and divide it by the number of people in there.
Yeah.
In there. So, all right, so we want average. So the average is going to be the sum. Oops. Sum divided by 3 in this particular case, because there's 3 of them in there. So I'm getting because I need an equal sign. So we have the sum divided by 3. So we're going to see out we're going to see out the average and the sum. Sum is sum and average is average. So now we're going to have an incorrect answer, which is not good. So I'm going to make this 10. So we're going to run this program. And first one is going to be 3. Second one is going to be 3. And the third one's going to be 4. So the answer, the sum should be 10.
Mm-hmm.
And the average should be 3.33. So let's see. See if our computers really know. Okay, well, the sum is 10 and the average is 3. That's a problem, which I knew was going to be. Now I need to get some cosmetic stuff in here. Okay, so let me close this and run it again so it's a little bit more, looks nicer. So we got 3, 3, and 4. So the sum is 10 and the average is 3. Well, we know that's not right. And here's why it happens. Okay, we have an integer and we're dividing an integer. Whenever you divide an integer by an integer, the answer here is going to be 3.33, but it says, no, wait a minute. We're doing integer division, so we have to chop off the last, anything after the decimal point. So that's why it's going to chop it off. So what we would have to do is one of two things. We would have to convert it, the sum, to a float, like this, or we could put this as 3.0. Now, I'm not a big fan of literals in here because what happens if it's 4 numbers? So, but that's a way that you can do it. So let me get rid of this for now because this really would not be the way I'd want you to do it. But what we're doing is we're doing float division, not integer division. So now we should get the right answer. So let's see what happens. So we have enter a number. So we'll do 3, 3, and 4. So there is 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. All right. So now, but you only want to print it to 2 decimal places. That's why God invented IOmanip. So, but all that does is, if you're familiar with format in Excel, then what it does, it just displays it the way you want to do it. So, there are multiple ways of doing it. So let me set it up for you the easiest way.
Okay.
And you just do a simple C out and then fixed. That means they want it to be fixed. And then the phrase set precision and to how many decimal places you want it. So now when we do this, it should print it to just 2 decimal places. So let's see what happens. Okay, so we have 3, 3, and 4. So now it's 3.33. Now, had it been different, so let's just say, let's just change this just to show you how it works without having to do a lot of coding. Let's just do average equals, did I spell it right? Average. I guess yeah. Let's just make it 3.3678. So let's see what it's, or let's just do this, 333. Let's do that. So you see how the set precision works.
Mm-hmm.
So technically it's 3. No, I'm a bad man. I want 3, 6. Let's do that. Let's see what happens. Say we're doing 3, 3, and 4. Now it's 3, 3, 7. The reason being is it rounds this number because it's 5 or more to the next highest one in here. It doesn't actually truncate. But remember, the value is still 3.333. So let's go back in here and print it out one more time. And let's do the set precision to 6. And you could actually do this right in the middle of a statement if you wanted to. I'm more of a put it on a separate line person. And to me, it just makes it too easy to make a mistake. So let's see what happens now. And there's build errors. Okay, that's probably because I didn't close this. Yeah, that's why. And the build error, it should say it can't write to it over here for writing. So no. So let's try it again. That's a very common thing. All right, so we do 3, 3, and 4. So it's the average is 337 because we only displayed it to 2, but the actual average is 336 in there. That does not get changed. So, are you familiar with Excel at all?
I had one class that was a couple of years ago. It was just the basics.
The Cat 102.
I think so.
Yeah, I actually teach that. I kind of like that class, to a degree, but there's a lot of non-IT majors in it, and a lot of times they struggle with, the things in there, to do. But, I have them for 16 weeks. So that makes it a lot easier. I've been saying a long time, it's challenging to get a lot of work in 7 weeks. It's kind of tough.
Yeah.
It's kind of tough. All right. So is that clearing things up for you a bit?
Yes.
All right. So what I would do, I show you the right way to do it really would be a for loop and an array, but that might be getting a little head of the game. I don't want to throw too much at you the first night. Look at your screen or share your screen and let's see what your Visual Studio looks like.
Said 99%.
Really, 99%. Awesome. All right, so then let me show you how to do a simple for loop. So if I wanted to print the numbers from 1 to 10, there is several different ways that I can do it, but I would just do it with a for loop. Now, this is allowing you inside a for loop, because you're only going to use the integer as a counter, you can declare it from right within it. So we're going to do integer I equals 1. And that's okay. You're going to hear me say a million times, no one-letter variables, but for a counter inside a loop, that is acceptable. So what we want to do now is, okay, we want to start from 1. When do we want to end? Well, we want to end when we want to keep going as long as I is less than or equal to 10. And then what are we going to do? We're going to increment I by 1. That's I plus plus. So now we have our brackets, and notice right away I'm doing 4. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put out C out, I equals I, and then end out. All right, so let's see what happens. So it should print the numbers from 1 to 10. And there it did. I equals 1. Okay, boom. So now you tell me I want it to be different way of doing things. So this is the way you normally would do something. Let's just do here, enter a number. Here we'll do this. Okay, enter a number. Please enter a number to loop. And we'll do this in here. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to get rid of this 10 and make this number 1. So now this time I can do it as many times as I want. And I don't want to do all this other nonsense here. So I'm going to comment it out. Boom. So that takes care of this. And so let's look at the code over here. We're getting a number. And then we're going to print this number until it goes, starting with 1, until we get to the number that we choose. So let's do something like 50. So it's going to go up to 50. So now they want you to add up all the numbers between 1 and 50. So that's simple. Sounds harder than simple. And again, if you're not getting all of this stuff as you start playing with the exercises, it will make a little bit more sense. So let's just use this as sum. So before we do anything, we're going to set sum as 0. And yes, I know that we already did it here. But in programming, you never ever want to take anything for granted. So first thing we're going to do here is we're going to get a number. And we're going to go up to as far as we want. We're going to add 1 to the number. And then we're going to print this out here as 1. So let's see one thing first before we go. Is this going to print 1 or is this going to print 2? And then I'm going to explain it to you why it's going to print what it is. So let's just do 5. Okay, so it's 5. So here's how it works. If we start off with 1, the first thing it's going to do, check to see, well, is I less than or equal to 5? Yes, it is. Okay, we're going to increment the counter when it hits this end of loop here, not now. Otherwise, it would have printed out 2 in there. So just remember, this gets incremented at the very end when it goes back to the next loop in here. So now we're going to do sum. And this is the correct way to add numbers together. I'm going to show you the 2 ways. Sum equals sum plus I. Which means we want it to be add the sum to 1 or to I and then update sum. But the preferred way of doing it is sum plus equals I. That's the preferred way of doing it. So I'll explain what that means and I'll just comment this out. That basically means here, add this to I. Either way is correct. This is the preferred way of doing things in there. But this will work. So in the beginning, if you're not comfortable with this, then use this over here. I personally like this better. And you can do it with subtracting, multiplication, and division. So let's see what our sum is from the numbers 1 to 10. And I don't know what it is. I do have a math degree, but I'm not able. There's build errors. All right. So if you get this and it doesn't tell you any nasty messages in here, it's because you probably never closed the file. It says over here, it cannot do it X for writing. So we don't want to do it. So we need to close this here. I'm very forgetful about doing that. So let's hit Control F5. We're going to do the numbers from 1 to 10. And man, I don't know what happened. It didn't print out. The program doesn't work. So then you go back to, oh, I know why. I never printed out the sum. That's why I encourage students, although right now it's a little challenging. When we're in class, I make you do this. When you're not in class, it's hard to do it online, to create an IPO. And what that does is the I stands for input. What do we need to get? What values do we get to get? P is what do we need to process? And O is what do we need to output? In this particular case, we need to output the sum. So we didn't do that. So I'm going to put C out. The sum is sum. And let's see what happens. Usually this is about the time I pray. Oh, I see a red line. So there's build errors. That's because this is the wrong way. Where's autocorrect when you need it? All right, so let's do 10 and see what happens. So the sum is 55. And let's see what it is for the first 250 numbers. Well, in case you wanted to know, it's 31,375.
Okay.
All right, so I have been throwing stuff at